And we bring in ESPN's Jay Bilas, who joins us on the MSG 150 Speed Dial, presented by Bilas by Verizon. Jay, thanks so much. Whatever you do, don't start telling that story you tell everybody about you and me in the ESPN college basketball studio eons ago. Please don't start with that.
Okay, it's a good one, though.
We'll move right along. You, of course, know college basketball better than just about anybody. You know Duke basketball better than just about anybody. Tell everyone what your expectations are for RJ Barrett when he becomes a Knick here and starts his rookie season.
Well, I think the Knicks front office knows it as well as anyone that RJ is not only extraordinarily talented, he's really mature for his age and is a great competitor. I think it had to have been a tough call at number 2 as to who you're going to take between Ja Morant and RJ Barrett. That's how good I think he's going to be. I think he's got a lot of James Harden in him. And I think he is going to become a good, consistent shooter from the perimeter in the NBA because he has got everything else and then some. He was the presumptive number 1 pick going into last summer and really should have been in high school last year. He reclassed to come to Duke and did some things that no freshman's ever done. He led the ACC in scoring on the same team as Zion Williamson and then was the only player in the league in the top 10 in scoring, rebounding, and assists. So he really had an extraordinary freshman year, and I think he'll be a great pro in time.
We've all gotten super excited about his scoring ability and his maturity, but Jay, you've seen him a ton. What's the most underrated aspect of his game?
Boy, Monica, that's a good question. I do think he's a very good defender. With his size and length and competitive nature, I think he can impact the game in a number of different areas. Excellent defensive rebounder and does such a great job of getting to the basket both in transition and in the half court and getting fouled. So that's where I think improving his shooting is going to come in. Like he doesn't have a broken stroke. He's just not consistent. And I think most players of his talent level, when they get in the NBA and really work at it, they can really improve their shooting. That's been proven over the years. And I think with his level of athleticism and his work ethic, because he really works at it, I don't think it's going to take him very long to be a much more consistent perimeter shooter. And once he has that, then I really do think, without a lot of hyperbole, he'll have everything as far as skill set's concerned.
And Jay, you're talking about the basketball piece. I was at his introductory news conference on Friday, and I had a chance to talk to him after that news conference. I'm just amazed by his poise and also by his maturity.
That's a good point, Billy. Like, it's uncommon at his age to have that kind of maturity. When he got the question about, can he take a franchise on his back or carry it on his shoulders, whatever it was, and for him basically to say, look, I haven't played a game yet. And he's supremely confident, but at the same time, he's got a humility to him that it's not all about him. And I think one of the things that was really impressive to me of the many things about RJ was when Zion Williamson became this international phenomenon and sort of took over the narrative and all the coverage last year, the guy that was happiest about it was RJ Barrett. And Williamson was out for a time. Cam Reddish didn't play in a few games. RJ played in every game, and he played hurt. He played sick in a game at Virginia Tech. He was sick in that game. And honestly, a lot of players would have sat that one out. And he came back and figuratively and literally gutted it out in the second half and never quit, not one time, and never complained, which for a 18, 19-year-old kid is not always the case, as you know.
Well, he will join the Knicks. Also, so will Michigan's Iggy Brazdeikis. Jay, I know you've had an opportunity to see his game a bit. What will he add to this team?
Brazdeikis is a tough kid too. Another Canadian, left-handed. He's kind of wired to score. I think he's got a little bit longer of a path to be where he wants to be as a player. He's not as talented, nor as good, nor as prepared as RJ is. Both are good players, but RJ's on a different level. So I think Iggy can step in time. It's going to take him a little bit longer. He'll probably spend some time in the G League trying to get some seasoning. But he's still very young in the game, and I think will be a good, solid contributor. If he can work toward, in the near future, contending for a rotation and then to be a starter at some point, that's a really good second-round pick for New York.
Jay, how important do you think the Duke experience is for players like RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson and all the others that have come from Duke and gone on to the NBA in terms of handling the spotlight and the scrutiny and the pressure?
It's another really good question. I think there are a couple things. One, I've never been a believer that college programs produce pros. I think they recruit them, and all good coaches and good programs are going to make players better. And I do think that happened for Williamson and Reddish and RJ at Duke. That's not to say it wouldn't have happened had they gone somewhere else. One of the things that I think is really helpful about playing at Duke, especially now, is the intense scrutiny and the intense media spotlight that you get. Now, I'm not suggesting it's anything like New York, because there's only one media spotlight that's anything like New York, and that's New York. It's kind of like people talking about restaurants. Everybody says, "Hey, that restaurant could make it in New York." Well, they don't say that in New York. You either make it or you don't. And so, I think he'll be more prepared to handle what's coming at him after a year at Duke than most other players would be prepared for after 4 years somewhere else. Now you could probably say the same thing if he were at Kentucky, but there's a different level of scrutiny that comes at Duke, and I think he handled it very well, and I think that'll help him handle what's coming at him in New York.
Jay, you are a wealth of college basketball knowledge. I want to pick on something you just said. College programs recruit pros, they don't produce them. So then explain Ja Morant to me really quickly.
Well, Ja Morant was kind of blew up this last year and got better. Now, it's not to say when I say they don't produce pros, they recruit them. It's sort of this idea if you go to Duke or Kentucky, or all of a sudden they're going to make you into a pro. I'm just not of that mindset. And look, the best coaches, the best programs, they're going to help players get better. But the reason I say the produce part is sort of the idea of tell me the last time you heard in the NBA somebody said, "Hey, boy, the Knicks, they produce all-stars," or the San Antonio Spurs, man, they produce Hall of Famers. They don't say that. It's said in college because they have to recruit and they have to sell themselves. You can make an argument that high schools produce pros, or high schools produce college players. But there's really not that sort of feeling. It's only in college that they sell that idea, and I'm just not a believer in that. Ja Morant, to your point, Monica, and it's a good one, is one of those players, kind of like Steph Curry at Davidson, where not a ton was expected of them out of high school. You thought, hey, good player. I watched Steph Curry play all throughout his high school career. When he went to Davidson, I didn't jump up and down shaking my fist saying this is a travesty. He should be at North Carolina, or he should be at Duke, and people should recognize that he's a future Hall of Famer. I didn't think that. After you saw him at Davidson and he matured into what he later became, a great college player, then you're saying, hey, man, that guy's a pro and he's going to be a really good pro. But even when he was at Davidson, I'm not sure how many of us basketball geniuses were sitting there saying, well, there's a two-time MVP and the best shooter to ever play. And that's what he's blossomed into. So it's nice for all of us to think that we know, we have beliefs, and we can make our best judgments, but oftentimes we don't know. And these guys continue to surprise us and thrill us every year.
Jay, you have interesting ties to Giants rookie quarterback Daniel Jones. He grew up with your son, and you coached Jones and your son in AAU basketball. So you know Jones going all the way back. What can you tell us about him?
Well, one, he's a great young man and a fantastic competitor. I think one of the things, look, I don't know anything about football. I'm a casual football fan. But when he was in high school and you saw him play, you were thinking he can be an NFL quarterback. And I'll tell you this, he was a Division I basketball player. He's a really good basketball player and tough as nails. I mean, played hurt. In between his junior and senior year, he had injured his right wrist, his throwing arm, and so he could not go to any football camps and throw, and he basically couldn't play, and yet he still came to my basketball camp, and I didn't expect him to play at all, and he came and he was the best player in the camp. And I remember telling his father that if he ever decides he doesn't want to bang heads around on a football field, he's a Division I basketball player, and it's not even a debate. So he's the real thing. Now, look, how he fares, his arm strength, I'll let Mel Kiper and Todd McShay tell you all that stuff. But what I can tell you is that kid, he comes to play every game. He will never make it about him. He's an amazing teammate and a fantastic competitor. And I think New York made one hell of a pick. And whether they got him at 6 or 17, that guy is going to prove how good he is. And you have to prove it, and you have to prove it everywhere, but especially in New York, and he'll prove it.
All right, Jay.
Wow.
I can't thank you enough for your time. Great perspective as always. Enjoy the rest of your summer and hit them straight out there on the golf course. For more great videos from the MSG 150, check out right there. And remember, our show is on Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10:30 p.m. on MSG Network and MSG Go.